All right, so saving the best for last. Fractions. Working with fractions, when to split a fraction, and how to use keep, change, flip. All right, so looking at number 37 from the homework. Cotangent squared minus 1 over 1 plus cotangent squared equals 1 minus 2 sine squared. So first off, I'm going to split this fraction up. How do I recognize when I would split a fraction up? Generally speaking, when verifying trig identities, the preferred strategy would be to look at the more complicated side and try to break that down into become the more simple side, the simpler looking side. Looking at this, I have a single fraction that I am trying to break down into two terms, right? 1 minus sine squared, so two things. I'm trying to take this one thing and break it into two things separated by a minus sign. It's possible there are situations where something from the bottom could factor out and cancel something from the top, so the denominator completely cancels out. But that's not the case with this one. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to split it into two fractions. Now, before I do that, though, I'm going to apply a Pythagorean identity. 1 plus cotangent squared, that's your Captain Crunch. So this is going to be cotangent squared minus 1 over cosecant squared. Now, I have the denominator as a single term. This is going to easily split into two fractions. Cotangent squared over cosecant squared minus 1 over cosecant squared. It's not that tough, but it's one of the harder things, or one of the things that's more difficult to recognize that that's the appropriate strategy. I think we get really used to trying to make one fraction, make common denominators, and add or subtract things from one another, but it can go the other way too. Okay, so now I've got it split into two fractions. Now comes the part where we talk about how to use keep, change, flip. Cotangent over cosecant. A fraction like this, anytime you have a fraction where there's cotangent, tangent, secant, cosecant, chances are the appropriate strategy is going to be to convert these to their sine, cosine forms and then use keep, change, flip. So for this one, I'm going to change it to cotangent squared is cosine squared over sine squared, and cosecant is 1 over sine squared. So I've got fraction over fraction, big fraction. And then minus, we could use keep, change, flip here, but it's 1 over cosecant squared. That's a reciprocal identity. I'm just going to change that to sine squared. Okay, fraction over fraction, keep, change, flip. This is going to be the top fraction, cosine squared over sine squared. We're going to change it to multiply, and remember that big fraction bar in the middle, that's really a division symbol. So we're keeping the top, we're changing this to multiply, and we're flipping the bottom. Sine squared over 1 minus sine squared. All right, multiplying these two, I could multiply them straight across. When you're multiplying fractions, you can cross cancel like that. So we'll cross those out, and now we've got cosine squared over 1, and that's all that term is, and then we still have the sine squared over there. So now, ultimately, we're trying to get this to equal 1 minus 2 sine squared. We've already got one of the minus sine squareds. Let's see if we can get that other one out of this cosine squared. Take a look at your Pythagorean identities and check the key when you're done.